AvtarLila, can we have, can we turn the camera?
Okay, is this better?
Yes, much better. Much better.
Okay.
Yeah. Such a warm welcome to you. We have a huge host of people who are already with us, AvtarLila.
Thank you.
A very warm welcome to you. Before you came, I was just telling everyone why I, chose to invite you here. And it's one of the first lives I'm doing on Instagram with a guest. I'm normally here alone. Or I'm normally invited by somebody. So you're my guest today, and I'm delighted to have you here.
Happy
I
to
was
be with
telling
you.
everyone why I chose you. So to all the friends present here today, Deepak and Ravina Asmani and Radhika Kishori, to all of you, the reason I chose to have this live with AvtarLila is not only because he's been a very, illustrious monk. Today he's a very informed motivational speaker, but I think his winning quality is his lack of arrogance and his humility and his ability to make at least me laugh. I was in a class studying the Mahabharata with him, and the contemporary edge he lent to the Mahabharata made it so identifiable, made it so beautiful. And I thought, in a time of stress, anguish, worry, panic about jobs, panic about salaries, panic about homes, and most of all, panic about COVID. I thought we should talk to somebody who has detached himself from the world and interestingly come back into the world. But more of that later. We are going to go, into his journey and mine. And it's going to be a great contrast because I'm, as when I passed out of college, the song they sang for me was they combined Material Girl and Uptown Girl. And that was sung, by the way, by Roshan Abbas, who was, my senior. And he's a beautiful musician and a guitarist, by the way. So I am your quintessential, material girl, and AvtarLila has not only given up the whole, material world, but he's bounced back into it to help us all cope. I'm, in my opinion, he's come back here to be one of us and even help us. So I'm going to take you through my journey, and he's going to take you through his, and we're going to have a rencontre. We're going to chat with each other. AvtarLila, I'm delighted to have you. And firstly, I'm delighted to have you in my life. Secondly, I'd like to offer thanks to the universe for giving you to all of us. And most of all, for your audience today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Grateful to be with you. I hope I'm audible clearly.
Yes, very clearly. I did ask a whole lot of people, and Deepak was kind enough to answer and say, welcome Vinayak, welcome Mumtaz. Yes, a warm hello to you as well. And we are delighted to have so many of you already within the first 5 minutes of our chat. Over to you, Avtar.
Thank you, Nisha, for bringing me up here. And in fact, when we were discussing mutually about this concept of having an Insta Live, and we both were brainstorming about what kind of topic or issue we should be actually discussing about. And she very poignantly brought about the point that how people are actually confused with what's happening in the world. We're not able to make sense of what's happening, especially with COVID around. And then in last 1 month or so, we have been seeing such sad demises of budding stars and youngsters, young talents. And that made us basically start questioning that there is some inner chatter behind the silent faces of young individuals, which is actually making them take such seriously harsh step. And then she came up with this brilliant talk, this title called The Talk Beneath the Silence. And thanks to her for, prodigy to bring up this topic so succinctly, pointing out what exactly is the problem. So, yeah, Nisha. So maybe, Nisha, you could begin with your experience of studying abroad, working abroad, and then coming to Mumbai, the humdrum of the society. What kind of challenges you cope with? How did you cope with those challenges? And any wisdom for all of us?
I think the wisdom is going to come from you, AvtarLila. But for me, I must say that yes, you're not wrong. Life in the fast zone can be very challenging. The pressures of, work, social media, being slim, looking good, shouldering criticism, especially in the fast zone of Bombay, for me was a surprise. I came, after being a student and working for a short while in Los Angeles, Paris, and later Tokyo. And surprisingly, out of all the cities I've lived with in the world, I found Bombay not only very welcoming and warm, but also very demanding. And I must say that to cope in a demanding city like Bombay, one does need to have, one does need to have certain mantras by which you live your life. And for me, the most fabulous mantra was gratitude. I start my day with gratitude. I'm not only, I am grateful to nearly everything, including my sea view. So, I mean, sometimes it sounds, sometimes it sounds eccentric when I'm saying to myself early in the morning, thank you, view, thank you, universe, thank you, partner, thank you, cook. So, but I must say it changes the tone of the day. It changes the tone of life. And, we'll come to it later about why life was challenging. But, on a more superficial vein, on a more, superficial vein, I'll say that even just the demands of everyday work and how you're supposed to present yourself, to be in a good humor all the time, it can be taxing. And especially if you're an A-type personality. So to adopt, various tools, like I said, gratitude, just something as simple as laughter, walking, for a short while every day, giving up resentment towards people. Avtar, if you were to ask me, I am a great, I think Kangana Ranaut is a fabulous actor. And she's a fabulous, vulnerable, sweet, small town girl. But if I was to give her one piece of advice, it would be to look at the brighter side. The brighter side is she's become a famous producer and an actor. She's got a beautiful home, which she's, had designed. And, when Karan Johar went to the London School of Economics, he said she's one of the finest performers we have in this country. So my philosophy is, and my advice to her would be, focus on that. Don't focus on the fact that he said, if you don't like Bollywood, leave it. So the point I'm making, Avtar, is to take out, I've always taken out the best that I saw in somebody and sort of ignored the part. So there were two things he said about her at the London School of Economics. She chose to be upset by the not so pleasant thing. So if I was to give advice to anyone in the world, it would be take the good, learn to forgive, and don't hold resentment. So Avtar, these were some of the mantras I adopted. The strongest, of course, being gratitude and seeing the best side of just about everyone. Because if you look at it, I don't know about you, who's also, given up so much, and I don't know about what you would say to this, but in my belief, we all have, very positive sides and some amount of the little devil sitting on our shoulder. So if we could just look at that angel in everyone, life might become easier for us. I'm not saying it really as a philosophy. So if you were to ask me my tools of survival, I think these were the tools. And of course, choosing the right, partner in your life, I think is a huge plus. Being careful. I mean, not going with the wrong partner because, there's social pressure of, like they say in India, quote unquote, to get settled. I don't know what that means. I've never known what it means. I don't think human beings can ever settle. We are all learning, growing, changing beings. But these have been some of the secrets of my joy and joie de vivre in life. I actually wanted to ask you, I'm sure everyone here today, is here wanting to hear from you that, AvtarLila, of course, we know yoga, meditation. We all know, Alom Vilom, chanting. Of course, these are very important. when we suffer anxiety and stress. But what is the real survival, mantra that you would share with us in terms of a very, not only the demands of work, not only the demands of family homes, family lives, but Avtar, also something very important. COVID has literally thrown us out of gear. And while
Correct.
we are resilient as human beings mostly, it's a virus that is changing and morphing. One day they say the virus, the vaccine is out in September. The next day they say, oh, the vaccine won't last because antibodies die in 3 months. They don't, the vaccine is not going to protect you more than 3 months. So this changing world right now, this, absolutely tenuous situation all around the globe is a first time. It's nearly a first time in humanity. I think the Spanish plague was very different in 1918. How are people to cope with the unpredictable nature of life right now and circumvent stress and the, the habit of worrying, which becomes nearly a habit?
Yeah. Thank you, Nisha. That was pretty profound of your expression of gratitude is something that you practice personally, and this is what helped you cope up when you moved to Bombay and the pressures that the city brought with you. I hope Kangana gets to hear the advice that you've given her. I hopefully it reaches her and it becomes better for her.
Because she's a beautiful person, Avtar, and she should, embrace that beauty.
Absolutely. As far as you asking me about how we can actually cope with all these kind of changes and situations that is surrounding us, sometimes beyond our control. Sometimes, most of the times, it's beyond our wishes either. Now, I would like to point out two things in response to the question that you've asked here. Actually, after the Great Depression in the United States, following there was a big research that was launched in Harvard University. It was called the Grant Study, where people wanted to know what is it that people should invest in their lives so that they become happy, hale, and hearty as they grow in their age. Basically, what brings life satisfaction? Ultimately, whatever we do, whether it is our PVIP addresses or whether it is our 7-figure salary or whether it is an international vacation, ultimately, we're looking for fulfillment, satisfaction, happiness at the end of the day. So they started what is called as the Grant Study, where they studied around. Sorry for that. Okay, and they were studying 700 odd sophomores. I'm sorry, the camera. Can you see me?
Not currently, no. Welcome, Neelam. What a pleasure to have you. Janvi, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Neelam, delighted to see you after so long. No problem, Avtar. We are waiting.
No, I'm perfect. Yeah, somebody just called in between.
Yeah.
So, but the point I was saying was in Harvard University, we had Robert Waldinger, who actually is the 4th director of that study. And without going to the details, they basically studied the life of all these people for 50, 60, 70 years. And what they found was the one thing that people should invest in, which would ensure, and you actually hinted to that point, one thing that people need to invest in so that they can deal with unpredictabilities, deal with life's challenges, deal with life situations, is relationships. It is not what happens to you, which is extremely difficult to handle, but whom you are with and who is with you while you're dealing with what you're dealing with, which makes a hell lot of difference, whether you are successful, whether you are able to rebound, whether you are able to be resilient, and how you respond to the situations. Now, talking about relationships now, if the contrast side of what's happening in the world today, we are living in a world which is becoming more and more socially connected. Social media networks, Facebook, Insta, we're all very well connected. But at the same time, we are living in a time when we are also the most lonely species on the planet. Like when you mentioned Tokyo, by the way, is also the most loneliest city on the planet. In Japan, there are 500,000 people who have not stepped out of their home, and this is before COVID. They have not stepped out of their home for
And
6 months to go and meet someone. Yeah, you
you'll
will say
agree
something?
with me of that, yeah, I wanted to say that you'll agree with me that social media actually makes you nearly more lonely.
Exactly. So that's what is happening. Now, social media is something which has to be used intelligently. But what's happening is people are more into social virtual connections, and they miss those one or two important connections which are required in their life, where they can open up their hearts, where they can talk to, they can hear their problems, hear their challenges, voice their feelings, desires, anxieties. And when people bottle up their emotions, that's the time life becomes extremely difficult to handle. So I would say, in the aspect of dealing with change, the first thing is, please, whoever you are, whoever is listening to this conversation live, whoever will hear this conversation later on, whatever you remember from this conversation, please, please, and as Nisha was saying, practicing gratitude. So I'm combining the two. Practicing gratitude in your relationships is something so very important for the quality of your life. Being grateful to your spouse, being grateful to your mother, being grateful to your father, being grateful to your siblings, being grateful to your children. All these are important, crucial aspects, because at the end of the day, all we have is each other, no matter what kind of success we get in life. And the second aspect of how do we deal with this unpredictability is, if you want to deal with change, as you were saying, yoga, meditation, and chanting and all these things, if we want to deal with change, we can only deal with change to the extent, to the degree we are connected to things which don't change over a period of time, right? So when we are connected to things which don't change over a period of time, that's what gives us stability, right? So just like a fisherman out in the ocean fishing, he has to stand in a boat which is solid. Only then he can actually fish around and deal with the waves of the ocean. Most of the time, many of us don't have a stable background to stand upon, something which is not affected by the passage of time and occurrence in the world. That's exactly what spiritual functions is all about. When we are taught meditation, when we do chanting, when we do any kind of puja, any kind of intellectual study, introspection, what we try and do is find that stable space within our own hearts, where we find our identity, where we can actually stand upon and see all kind of changes and reversals and difficulties.
Right.
And I think, Nisha, there will be no better than you to speak about dealing with challenges and difficulties. I remember, Lord Jeffrey Archer wrote a book in which he actually spoke about your life's journey. Would you like to share with us how exactly you dealt with such magnitude of unpredictabilities and changes? I feel there's nobody around here, probably, in my knowledge, who would have seen that level of unpredictability and unexpected events happening in your life at spots when you actually were expecting everything to go smooth. So how did you deal with it? Were there moments where you caved into the pressure? What helped you keep moving on? What helped you remain positive? What helped you remain actually moving forward in spite of the challenges? Please, whatever you'd like to share with us, we'd love to hear from you.
Firstly, Avtar, thank you for that fabulous, even I've learned so much about, coping from you right now. Even though I've known you so long, every time I speak to you, I go back enriched. And I'm sure all the people here with us today are feeling that way too. About my trial and my challenges, you're not wrong. I don't know a single person, and I know lots of people. I don't know a single person who must have gone through what I have. And, this why me victim card, I played quite happily in the beginning. And I found I was not maximizing all my positive energy. I was not using all the things that my foundation was so brilliantly strong, a fabulous education, fabulous parentage, fabulous, grooming as a child. I was just wasting time after a very shocking accident the moment I came back to India. And the first year in India, I spent in a hospital in Bombay, and I used to get very severe panic attacks by around this time every evening. It used to become dark, Avtar, and the dark used to terrify me because life had taken such a strong turn and so abruptly that in 1 second, life changed. And I think today, interestingly, the whole world has gone through that. In January, February of this year, the whole world was in shock. So my life was like that. when I came back to India, you know, looking into the stars, into a Cinderella happily ever after, I'd found a real life prince from Kashmir, you know, from the royal family. And he looks every part, you know, 6'2" and absolutely a hunk. And our dreams just came crashing to the ground. And I can't tell you right now that, you know, I was this valorous, Joan of Arc who took to, you know, fight my trial and tribulation. That's not true. I weighed, you know, I was weighed under the shock of what happened to me. But interestingly, what pulled me out were my preoccupations with work and hobbies. My painting, my writing skills, my, the first column that Shekhar Gupta gave me along with Nonita Kalra on art, my column which Akar Patel gave me. See, I'm only thinking of you right now. Akar Patel, one of the finest editors of India. He gave me a column on interior architecture. I started painting, I started drawing. And when you are preoccupied with things that engage your mind, when you have hobbies and greater things than your own problems, a very magical thing happens. And that is that your trials and tribulations and the troughs become into your allies and your friends. And they metamorphose you into a more compassionate, kind, generous, thoughtful person. I found my personality I've always been a kind, and, you know, all the friends that I had from school always remember me as somebody kind. But that kindness was, it just catapulted into something very monumental, where my focus in life was no longer me. It was the people around me. So ironically, when I most needed compassion and love, the one thing that pulled me out was giving compassion and love and giving kindness. And that became the bedrock of my life. So that I just, the doors just opened. And one of my first closest friends in the world who helped me through this phase was Lisa Ray. Later it was Zeenat Aman. And there were lots of these magical people who came into my life and held my hand. And we, Lisa was also going through a very big trial in her life. And we became into sort of, guides and mentors for each other. And interestingly, she's written about it in her book recently, about what we went through and how we helped each other.
Okay.
So when you take trial and make it into an ally, into a game changer in your life, when you have, like you just said 1 minute ago, relationships that, are so important, so beautiful, so transforming. They're literally like, magical gods entering your life. And last of all, work and hobbies that give you meaning, give you purpose, give you direction, and give you meaning for life. When meaning has been pulled out from under your feet like a carpet, and when you get that meaning, Avtar, from your work and your hobbies, and as life proceeded, I discovered spirituality and heartfulness. And around that time, I met Radhanath Swami from the ISKCON movement, who brought light and effulgence and kindness and compassion even further. So, there's nothing as beautiful as meeting. I think it's a blessing. Would you agree? It's a blessing when you meet a guru.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. I've lived over a decade with him.
Yes.
It's blessed to have lived with him for a decade.
So there is a certain physical effulgence around him, Avtar. I could feel it, and lots of people gossip about so many things in the world. But for me, ISKCON has been like entering Vaikuntha or paradise. Everyone is giving, sharing. No one has ever asked me for anything in the ISKCON movement. Radhanath Swami, who helms it, is a beautiful leader for ISKCON, and that was, of course, a game changer. Spirituality and meditation with heartfulness, and Daji, who's Daji Kamlesh Patel. I have grasped all these beautiful people and moments and kept them close to my chest. And of course, there's you, who came also as a guru. Of course, you're a great person in the world today. No longer, pursuing gurudom. But I do want to. But today, you're nearly a corporate guru, Avtar. For a man who won so many awards, who was a brilliant academician in one of the leading institutes in India, from such a fabulous family. Everyone expected you to take the corporate career by its reins and ride it to the helm. Instead, you chose your early years of your youth, when normally people are so ambitious about cars, Maseratis, money, followers. Instead, you choose to join ISKCON and become a monk. And I think, Avtar, correct me, was it 10 years?
Yeah, almost 12, yeah.
12 years. So after 12 years, I think everyone, including me, was quite surprised when your hair suddenly grew and you became into a handsome motivational speaker in the world. So can you, I know I'm entering personal space, but since you asked me a personal question, I'm volleying it back to you and asking you that what made you take this leap, and is there a chance that after you ride this career and help people with your coaching and your motivational talks, is there a chance you'll, go back to the fold?
Difficult question, but yeah, I'll try and answer. Actually, just thinking about your reply just recently, which is so profound and deep, I was thinking, basically, when people do self-harm, and I'll come to your question about what made me become a monk, but just before that, I want to share, when people do self-harm, what happens in their life is they find the pain of living is far more than pain of giving up your life. And the pain actually becomes intense. As you said, make your failures as your allies. Now, that is something which not many people are actually able to do, to transform this whole concept of seeing failures. And failures are going to come in everyone's life. That is absolutely a non-negotiable term. Everyone, whether it was Bill Gates, whether it was someone else, whether it was Sam Walton, whether it was Warren Buffett, whether it was J.R.D. Tata, whether it was whoever, challenges are going to come. And how we actually transform them into our allies is something which is very important. Now, what happens is when we talk about, and you spoke about work, making that as your purpose, which is so profound. Basically, when we seek motivation, what happens is when people actually take their life away or do some self-harming activities or get into depression, mental health problems, like just to put things on ground, like very grieving though, we have almost one person attempting suicide every 2 seconds on the planet.
Oh.
That's how grim the situation is.
And
we have one.
We've just recently lost, a shining star, Sushant Singh Rajput. And what worries me, Avtar, is that he was a role model to millions. And I just want to use this platform today to say no one else should use this escape route. After that one split second of wanting to end your life is the second where you want to save it. So just wait and count to 10, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically what happens when we feel lack of motivation comes by 3 things, basically. The first is, and within that lies the answer to your question also, what made me lead a life of corporate world and go into monkhood. First is sense of autonomy. Everybody wants to experience freedom. Everybody wants to experience their own space. And when the space starts getting constructed, we start feeling choked out. The second thing is a sense of expertise or mastery. When you want to, say, master playing a violin or a musical instrument, or master some art or a skill or painting or art or whatever, that actually creates a sense of motivation in us. But once you reach a certain kind of level where you are already an expert, where you already have your freedom, what actually motivates us? And that happens a lot of time with people who are very prosperous and successful. And I'm sure you would know that better than any one of us here who live in that celebrity world, in the luxury world, how when people actually hit the roof in terms of their accolades and their expertise, their like name, fame in their respective fields, what propels people after that? And many times people actually find a vacuum post that. But the third element which inspires and creates motivation is a sense of purpose. A sense of purpose which is going beyond you. A sense of purpose which is not limited to just money, which is not limited to just popularity, which is not just limited to ourselves, but something which is centered beyond us, where we want to do something. And if you look at the great global leaders, whether it is Warren Buffett, being the the world's biggest philanthropist, or whether it is whoever else in the world making their big money, they always have a foundation which goes out to serve a sense of purpose.
Yes.
Now, coming to your second question of studying at Indian Institute of Science and then working in multinationals, I was always asking this question to myself that what is it that I'm actually looking for? So I went for by Krishna's grace, I came to one of the best institutes, grateful to him, grateful to my parents who supported me there. And it wasn't that I didn't have those low moments where I started questioning myself. And then when I was graduating from Indian Institute of Science, I had multiple options of going to the corporate world, going for this, going for that, going for a PhD in the United States, everything. But then some sort of a vacuum was coming in my heart, because it was autonomy and mastery was there, but a sense of purpose was missing. And I simply asked a question to myself that if I want to, do I want to just stay earning money and managing my own needs, or do I want to do something meaningful for the world? How would I like to be remembered by this world when I'm dead and gone after 50 years, 60 years, whatever? And then the serious calling came that I need to work on myself. I need to first build myself internally before I can actually make an external contribution. Because the question that we need to ask ourselves is, do I want to become history, or do I want to become historical? And if you want to become, and not that I'm big anything, but every one of us have to work on our own inner being in terms of finding our sense of purpose, sense of calling, which is beyond just immediate benefits. And that's what brought me to the precincts of the ISKCON temple in Radha Gopinath ashram, and I had the good fortune of lovely gathering of teachings of His Holiness Radhanath Swami, who has written this beautiful memoir called The Journey Home, which is absolutely a masterpiece. And if any one of you here listening is a reader kind, please don't miss that book. That's an absolutely amazing book which can actually open up the horizons of how we think about life. And that kind of his personal presence, as you rightly said, his compassion, just his qualities of gratitude and kindness which exudes out of him, actually makes you realize that there are certain more deeper values which are cardinal to human existence than just achievements.
Yes.
Achievements is for the world to see, but our character and values is for us to see. That's how we gain a sense of self-worth. And therefore I came to the monastery.
If actually, achievements and followers and cars were the litmus test, you wouldn't have people like Alexander McQueen, Kate Spade, or Sushant Singh Rajput, ending their lives. We must remember that, Avtar Singh, Alexander McQueen was at the zenith of his career, and Sushant Singh had a dream of buying a Maserati, and he owns the largest telescope in domestically. Yes. I'm not talking about institutions. Yes. So he had actually come and grabbed all his dreams. So if followers and dreams are a litmus test of success and happiness, then wouldn't all these people be so happy?
Exactly. That's a very valid point. Yeah, that's a very valid point. In fact, in Cambridge, Professor Michael Norton, actually he performed an experiment. And this was published in this online magazine called Wired a couple of years back. And what they did was they had two bunch of students, and they gave $10, $15, $20 to them. And one of the groups was told, you go and spend the money on whatever you want on yourself. Second group was told, you have to spend this money on somebody else, on whatever you want. Both the groups came back. They had spent their money on Starbucks, Netflix, and cosmetics. That were the three prime things. But when they were questioned about how did they feel, then the people who had spent money on themselves, they said they felt like any other ordinary day, right? The experience level was same. But when people who were made to ask, they actually spent on someone else, when they were asked, they said that they felt 10, 15, 20% time better. Their happiness and satisfaction levels were better. Michael Norton was quizzed. So he repeated this experiment in all the continents of the globe, whether it was Australia, Africa, Asia, Europe, all these places. And then they found they actually, came up with the research finding, and you'll be surprised to know, they said, as human beings, we are all wired for generosity. And unless that potential is tapped, we will always feel a sense of vacuum, right?
Oh,
You always feel like,
okay.
actually, even and as your prosperity increases, if your generosity is not increasing, the vacuum starts going bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And you would know that better, how when we actually lead an external life, we try to use plastic smile. I mean, this becomes so common, especially amongst the luxury world, the celebrity world, as they say, because the gap between your achievements and your generosity is just widening. So I feel leading a life of purpose, and that's what brought me to the monastery. And then when I learned for over a decade, 12 years, our spiritual teacher always taught us, always follow your heart's calling. And at one point of time, I started feeling I need to now go out into the world and help the world with what I have learned. Not everybody can afford to stay 12 years in a monastery and take such a big risk. It was a big risk, honestly speaking. Being, in such a competitive world, give 12 years of, as you said, prime of your youth, come out and stay there. And then I felt, let me go out to this world and share what I have learned. Probably I'll be able to make some difference in some people's life, but that will be a lot for those particular people. So I don't claim myself to be like a big, world transformer or whatever, but whatever is small way. And teenagers attracted my heart. We have a club called Unbounders where we do a lot of activities together for the teenage community in Bombay and now expanding. And then for the corporate world where people are actually toiling hard without missing upon the quality of life. Leaders are under such intense pressure. All the CXOs community, the business heads, the CEOs, they're in such intense pressure working for numbers. They're actually not leading a quality life. And in fact, last year we had this, kind of unfortunate case when the owner and the founder of Cafe Coffee Day, he created an environment where people can come and relax, but he himself was not relaxed, and he actually gave up his life.
Very much like Dale Carnegie, who wrote the book How to Influence People and Make Friends, and then ended his own life. Yeah,
loneliness practically.
Yes.
So I feel that was the sense of purpose which drove me to be in the ashram, to become a monk, to find myself, to understand myself. And what I realized in 12 years of my stay as a monk, practicing meditation for almost 2 decades and being in close proximity with such a stalwarts like Radhanath Swami, I just realized that you find yourself in the process of helping others. When you give your life trying to help others, that is the process of actually finding yourself also. So then after a certain stage, I said, let me go out and share whatever little I can. If there is someone out there who becomes benefit with this message, I'll feel my life fulfilled. Wow. That was something that I actually did. But it would be interesting to know from you that, sometimes in this world that it was quite amazing. It's such a contrast that your life actually indicates that you're leading a life which is so much filled up with the trappings of luxury, as they say. How do you manage to live such an authentic life as yourself while living in a world which is sometimes can be externally very phony, if I can use the word?
Yes, absolutely.
People want to project what they are not, and such an environment, how do you lead a very authentic life like you do in your personal life? Would you like to share some wisdom?
Yeah, I would love to share, because that's a very important question, Avtar. And while I share, I just want to thank Ravina Aswani for her compliment. And I want to thank Upasana Rathi, Sophia Premji. I want to thank Lila. I want to thank Delna Mistry and, Chilled Out Sam. I want to thank Pankaj. All of you, Malti, thank you for coming. Dhruv. All of you for being there. I know there are millions of lives going on at this time, and you've taken out this time for me to be with both of us. Thank you so much, and thank you, Ravina, for your compliment. I'm really touched by it. Avtar, I want to say that in the phony world, I don't see the phoniness. Very much like the advice I gave earlier, I only allow myself to perceive and focus on the stars, not on the puddles and the slush. So any toxic person who I feel wants to bring me down or gets competitive or jealous, I actually feel a certain degree of compassion for them, because envy, jealousy, competitiveness, these come from personal angst and personal challenges that people may be facing. So I feel a lot of compassion for people who feel that desire to dislike me because I'm working hard and probably bettering my game in whatever way, I can. And my attitude as taught by ISKCON is humility and servitude. I believe I'm just a servant of, God. I'm not actually looking at myself as something very great. So when you have an attitude of compassion, an attitude of, kindness towards those people who have a certain envy and jealousy towards you, you automatically change the chemical substances in the air around you. And the people who
Very
are
true.
actually your detractors, they become into your friends, I've noticed. And if they don't, then I'm happy to let them go. But I make it a very conscious point to surround myself with kind, positive, and slightly compassionate people. Also,
Beautiful.
like I told you right at the outset, I have chosen to, in my personal relationships, I've chosen the beautiful people. The moment I see somebody has ego, antagonism, arrogance, self-love to a, narcissistic point, I'm a journalist, I'm a writer, I'm a columnist. I'm able to glean these traits immediately. That level of instinct has been gifted to me. So one of the greatest ways that I avoid the phoniness of society is by not at all acknowledging it, by not allowing it to enter my personal space, and by surrounding myself by my ISKCON sisters, like a lot of those who are here today. Even Ashish Virmani, who's a very close friend, is here. And he just wants you to know he's read the book, A Journey Home. He just wants you to know.
Wow. Beautiful.
He's a
Beautiful.
very well-known journalist himself, and he's talking about Radhanath Swami in his comments here. So these are the people and Neelam Kumar, she's herself a motivational speaker, and she's here with us today. I surround myself with people like them. And my partner in the world, the partner that I chose with great care. While my friends were asked when, we had a group discussion in America at my, at my college, and we were asked, what would you look for in a man? And everyone said, a solitaire in the Eiffel Tower, and, a so-and-so car, and so-and-so. And I said, I'm looking for somebody who's kind to the little people. Somebody who's not rude and impolite to people, like the person who gives you your cup of tea in the morning. How many of us say thank you to those people? How many of us make an effort to smile and be kind to them? So everyone's kind to, the powers that be. But I genuinely wanted to be with a man who was kind to the smaller people, who was compassionate when no one was looking, So that I think would form the philosophy of my friendships. And that would form, and I have to say my friends are absolutely the hands, the bahein that collect me when I'm feeling tired and waned by the world. And for me, the phony world just melts away in front of the beautiful people, many of whom have graced us today, including you and including Radhika Kishori, who keeps, motivating us with her thumbs up signs. I want to say, AvtarLila Prabhu, that the phony world is when you allow it to be phony around you. In my world of, the fast zone of Bombay, I've actually focused on only beautiful people. And
that's very
and
profound.
I think, AvtarLila, I have a very important, I must digress for half a minute. There's 2-3 people who are asking me to ask you that they don't have work anymore. They are very frightened of the world right now. How are they supposed to stay inspired and motivated when no one's buying their paintings, when no one's giving them salary, when no one's giving them work? How are they supposed to stay positive in a scenario which looks never ending?
If I heard you correctly, you were talking about how should people actually deal with the situation where they are losing their jobs. They don't have, especially the people who are like artisans or even skill-based workers and things like that. That is definitely an unfortunate situation. And I would say that the kind of calamity we are all facing, it's a communal responsibility to, kind of support and honor everyone. Like, some of us might be very blessed with a lot of resources. This is the time to actually come forward and help as per our capacity few people. It's not about luxury at this moment. It's about survival.
Yes.
And human survival is something of paramount importance. If it's a interdependent society, we need to actually, extend our helping hand, extend our nature. And I know so many people like all of you also, and many of them here, who have extended their support, their resources in order to help in whatever small capacity we can. I know of a lot of CEOs, a lot of CXOs who actually went forward and he said, we are not going to lay off anyone in this pandemic time, but let's have a pay cut. And all the C-level executives in one of the companies where I was talking, all the C-level executives, they actually took a 50% slash straight. Now a C-level executive taking a 50% slash can actually maintain at least 20, 30 regular employees in a company, right? That's a big thing. So they didn't took a decision to lay off anybody. They said, let us not make profit for 1 or 2 years. It's okay. Now this is a dichotomy, and I always talk to CXOs about this, about the dichotomy between will and resources. Resources about, if you talk in the corporate sense, resources about money, resources about your investors, resources about the stakeholders, and the will is the inspiration with which people come and work for you. The question, I always ask CXOs this question, are you making a company, are you making a workplace which is so inspiring that people actually look forward to come and contribute, not because they are told to, not because they are paid, but because they're inspired? And if you're creating that workplace, that's the purpose of being a chief executive officer, of a chief vision officer, or whatever the designations may be. So I came across, and we actually discussed, and at the beginning of the pandemic, I was actually interacting with many of the CXOs, what we should do. And we actually came up with different kind of a strategy. So I'm saying it's a communal responsibility. If you have in your building, if you have, few chowkidars, like I told my mom, I said, now your house help is not going to come, but please don't stop her salary. Please. You may have sufficient saving to run your show, but your one gesture of just even just probably 80% of her salary you give her, she will remain grateful for life, and you will actually inculcate deep values in a family which they will remember for life. They continued to pay the house help, even though she was not coming for the pandemic time, 4 months. And the result is you bring up beautiful people with a grateful heart. And honestly speaking, life is lived in these small moments. You don't have to do a charity of few crores or few $1 billion to make a difference. You can make a difference in that one chowkidar's family. You can make a difference in your sabjiwala's life. You can make a difference in your house help. What big deal it takes? Probably don't order a pizza. It will actually take care of their 3 days of meals.
Absolutely.
So the point is, and I would say that a lot of compassionate people like all of you and many people here I know of who are logged in here, they actually went out of their way to help. And this is what human society is actually meant to stand for.
Yes.
Right? So it is not just government's responsibility. It is not just the individual's responsibility to make their own living. No, we all need each other. So we have to be there to support and help each other. This is what I feel. And I'm sure this pandemic would be over in due course of time. We have dealt with situations before, and this resilience, this ability to stand together, which helped us fight, rebound, and resiliently come back.
Very true.
So I think thank you to all of you for being so compassionate and kind.
Thank you, Tejaswini, Parul, Khandelwal, and Smita Shah for your fabulous compliment. I'm deeply touched. Thank you, Monica, for joining us. All of you, all your little notes. If you want to come in with any questions, we can keep, addressing. So all of you who have questions, please just throw them in now. This is the time. Okay, so you want to know what are my mantras for staying buoyant and happy. So I think laughter is great. I'm going to give you some mantras, and then I'm going to ask AvtarLila for bullet points as well. So I'm going to give you bullet points. My bullet points would be laughter, to give up control, to stop being A-type and stop being a control freak. Being a control freak is very, very much, a contributor to stress and anxiety. And figure out your triggers. Figure out things that trigger you. Figure out things that bother you. stay away from triggers. If there's something you know that's going to bother you, and pick up a phone and speak to a friend. There's no harm confiding. If you look weak and if somebody alienates you because you are confiding in them, they're not worth taking with you to the grave. Make friends that you can take to the grave with you. There's no time for frivolity, and like AvtarLila said, there's no time for phony superficiality. And philanthropy is a great booster of oxytocin in your body. Giving away, giving to people, like AvtarLila said, you're hardwired to give, and that gives you the maximum happiness. Give masks to all the people who don't have masks today. Today order some online and go and give them out. They'll make you happy. Hug, I know we're talking about social distancing, but there are people in your home, your partner, your daughter, there are people you can hug. Do you know that hugging gives out much more oxytocin than anything else? One little message which I have to say, please don't turn to, in my humble opinion, don't turn to things like benzodiazepines. Benzodiazepines are addictive. Valium, Trica, these are things that give you further mood swings, that give you depression, that give you unhappiness. I don't know, many people may not tell you this, but I would go the AvtarLila way of, meditation, kindness, philanthropy, not medication. Medication is addictive. So yes, these are my bullet points. Can you give us some, bullet points, like 10 or 5 bullet points, like a rapid fire of AvtarLila?
But I heard maximum of the points.
Can you give us 5 bullet points? I just gave 5 quick rapid fire bullet points to stay happy and
okay, so this is what I learned from this is, yeah, sure. So this is what I personally practice in my life, and which has kind of always helped me stay calmer and focused with whatever decisions I took. First is humility. Be humble. The world is not there, the universe is not there to bow down to you. You are here to bow down and learn from every nook and corner. Every individual who crawls and walks or swims or flies is there someone to teach you. Be humble. Second, persevere. Persevere. The success is not going to knock you the next day once you start working. Bill Gates was 12 when he started. He became a billionaire when he was 30. Steve Jobs was walking in Florida campus, University of Florida campus, without the money to even credit a course. But it took a while before he could actually become successful. So whatever it is, persevere. Third, seek wisdom in life. And I personally say the best way to seek wisdom is reading books. This is what my personal take is. Reading books is like you can be in connection with the most ancient wisdom people just by reading their literature. If I tell you that I have Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi, and Veer Savarkar all sitting in my living room, would you like to come and see them? All of you will be excited, isn't it? But that's how books are. When you have all these books, and I strongly recommend when you actually start seeking wisdom, wisdom will start pouring in from all nooks and corners of life. That's the third thing. The fourth is toughen up a little bit. You start practice, lead a life where you actually have some elements of voluntary asceticism, of voluntary denial of your own wants and desires. Maybe give up your favorite dinner one night and probably go and feed somebody else on the street. Toughen up by saying no to your mind's demands. And the fifth thing is always live with gratitude and not with complaint. People who complain stay where they are. People who have gratitude, their failures only show where they are, not where they have to be. So when we live with gratitude, cosmic energies, Narayan, Hari would actually start showing you the path that you need to walk. So humility, perseverance, seeker, toughening up, and gratitude is the 5 things that I personally follow in my life, which actually keeps you grounded, but always keeps your eyes in the cloud. There's no problem to have your head in the sky, provided you are grounded. And these are the 5 things which I personally practice, learning from my spiritual teachers.
Fabulous. That's absolutely brilliant.
Thank you, Nisha.
You have Rashna Desai and Delna, loving your points. Delna
Thank
Mistry,
you. Thank you,
Pasna
Lila.
Rathi, Dhruv Mania, of course, Radhika Kishori, Ketki Mehta, Rajni Chandok, Parul Khandelwal, all of them. Ritu Chaudhary is with us from Dubai.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Deeply appreciate.
Sunita's here. All of them are just saying that, you know, our bullet points were, you know, really hit the spot, and they totally agree with this feeling. And, you know, AvtarLila, I want to add to all this by saying, you know, forgiveness. Don't hold on to resentment, you know, just forgive and forget, because you will be lighter, you will be happier, you will be less weighed down with the burden of resentment. So forgiveness is a great tool of happiness and joy.
100%.
You know, being fluid and being adaptive and letting, you know, friendships and people go through phases. You have to let relationships go through phases, just like you went through phases of AvtarLila. You know, one has to allow people, you know, we have to allow people to go through phases. You did sidestep one question. I'm not going to let you go. I'm going to ask you that, are you going to go back ever in life?
I think the answers to some question are in the womb of time. Only time would actually reveal, you know, what destiny would have for me. But my point is only my way of actually decide. Yeah, you go ahead. You can complete your point.
A lot of us also want to know that, you know, you spoke very interestingly about denial. I 100% agree with you. You know, my first boss, I worked with a French company. He was very nasty. And my parents said, you must leave. You must not work with him because you don't need to. And I said, no, actually, I do want to work with him because I want to know what this is like. I want to know how I'm going to handle it. I worked with him, AvtarLila, for 1 year. And I hardened myself. I wanted to harden myself. I wanted to be resilient. I wanted to be able to deal with the not so pleasant in life. AvtarLila, in the same way, the metaphor I'm drawing is you've come from an ascetic life into your home. Your mother probably is pampering you a little bit. How has the change been from a life of an ascetic, a monk, a person who probably bathed with cold water and lived in a dormitory with other monks, if I'm not wrong? Today, you know, you come back. What is the, how are you, you know, how is the metamorphosis?
It's a very interesting thing. Actually, I give the analogy of a river. I love rivers. And river sometimes goes through rough terrains. Now, when river goes through rough terrains, it gains speed and momentum. If you actually look at the rivers, when they go through rough terrains, they gain speed and momentum. And when they hit the plains, they flow smoothly, but they actually expand their contribution. So they expand their, you know, way they actually serve. They expand the number of people they can get. They help. They expand the number of people who get benefited by their flow. Similarly, my life as an ascetic was probably like a life through the mountain and the terrains. It was rough. It was fast. It was unpredictable, turns and swift. But what it gives us is a speed. It gives us a sense of direction, a sense of purpose, a sense of momentum. And probably going back home would be like hitting the plains. Now is the time to translate that momentum into some sort of a contribution for the world. Therefore, that momentum brings life, nourishment, and, you know, sweetness into the life of as many people as possible whom the river actually touches. And as you said, in the future, what will you do, whether we'll come back to this life or not? My question would be whatever it would take to live a life of purpose is what I'm going to do every single moment of my life. If after 20 years I feel going back and becoming a monk is the way I can contribute and serve more people, I won't hitch from taking that step. So I think that is something
stunning.
Thank you.
It's so beautiful, AvtarLila. I think this has been an absolutely fabulous session, and I just want to thank each and every friend for coming, being part of this. For all of you who've missed the session, I'm posting it on my live. Avtar and I will also post it on our own YouTube
Yes.
channels. My YouTube channel is NISHA JAMVWal. AvtarLila's is AvtarLila. And he's got a monumental following on YouTube. Please see his videos. As you can see, he wants to share all the knowledge he's garnered in 12 years of, renouncing the world. And now he's among us. He's with us. He said, you have to call me Avtar from today. So I'm calling him Avtar. He's a friend to all of us. Let us use the huge reservoir of knowledge that he wants to share with us. Let us enjoy his knowledge, and we welcome you back into this fold of ours, Avtar. And I think it would be interesting that we'll have more of you now, since your ascetic practices won't engage you as much. I'm really looking forward to seeing more of you, hearing more of you. And for me, this has been a very enriching rencontrer, more exciting. Thank you so much for this graciousness, for your time. And most importantly, thank you all our friends who are here, each and every one of you whom I recognize, I know personally. Y'all are very, very special to me, and y'all are very much part of my, my survival techniques. I just want to see if I missed anything. Rashna, I hope you got the answer to your questions. Parul, anyone else who wants to. Somebody wants you to write a book about your experiences, Avtar, so please do that very soon. Have you written a book though?
Not yet. But there are a lot of people who have been requesting me, but hopefully, if that is the best way to serve, I'll write.
It's a very, I will 100% be there with you. And Avtar, it would be very interesting because, it's a very unusual life to go into, asceticism and then come out and want to help the rest of the world. So I think that's a very magical journey that you've already led, at such a young age. So once again, thank you, everyone. Before signing off, I want to say this is just one of many talks with Avtar. We are going to come back, and we are probably doing something similar with different questions on Facebook Live after this. So thank you, and keep watching, keep liking. Without you, life is empty for me, all of you. Love you, and goodbye.
Avtar, thank you all very much. Thank you, Nisha. Thank you, Nisha. Thank you.
Thank you so
Grateful.
much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Tejaswini, thank you. Thank you. Delna, bye and thank you. Radhika Kishori, lovely, and looking forward to your feedback. Thank you.